Hey pianists! So for this week, we're going to be playing through the classic tune Satin Doll. And we're going to be doing it two different ways. We'll be playing the melody in our right hand with two-note voicings in our left hand. And then we'll also be comping through the tune with four-note voicings. So let's go through it. Let's start with the two-note voicings. So we're going to be playing the melody in our right hand, and I wrote out the melody a little bit differently than how it's written on the lead sheet. And you're welcome to interpret the melody however you want. Provided it still sounds like Satin Doll. But I wrote it out more how I typically play it. So that's what your right hand is going to be doing, the melody. And then in your left hand, you'll be alternating between your third and seventh. Between your root and third and your root and seventh. So if you wanted, you could start with root and seventh. So for D minor 7, the root and seventh is D is the root and C is the seventh. If you wanted, you could play it that way. And that's totally great, and that's fine. No reason not to do that. But you can also do it starting with root and third, and that's the way I wrote it out. So you can do it either way that you want, but here's, I wrote it out starting with root and third. So the root is D for D minor 7, and the third is F. Right, so root and third is D and F, moving to root and seventh, that's G and F for G7, right? So this is 2-5 in C major, D minor 7 is the 2 chord, G7 is the 5 chord in C major, right? And so that's how those first two bars go when you add the melody to it. Right, next two bars are the exact same thing, but up a whole step. Right, now when we're going from A7 to A minor 7, if you look at the root third and 7 of A7, that's A, C sharp, and G, right? Root third 7. The root third and 7 of A minor 7 is A, C natural, and G. So because our root isn't changing, and basically because our root isn't changing, we're not going to alternate from the third to the seventh. We're going to keep our seventh where it is and let our third just move down. So here's our A7 is root and 7. And here's A minor 7, root and 7. So it's the exact same two notes. So coming from the fourth bar, now here's the A minor 7, D7, right? So that's 2-5 in G major. Now here's the half step cycle, chromatic 2-5 half step cycle, so A flat minor 7. And because the D flat is only moving down by a tiny amount to the C major, we're just going to move parallel. So we're going from root and third on D flat 7 down to root and third on C major 7. And then for the A7, we are going to alternate. We're going to move from root and third of C major to root and 7 of A7. That's partly because it voice leads nicely, and it also voice leads nicely into the next D minor 7 chord. Right, you can feel that root and 7th moving to root and 3rd, which is how we played the first A. So that's leads us back to the same left hand, which is nice for if we're looking for consistency. So going on, here's the next 8 bars. All right, now we're at the bridge. And again, I rewrote the melody differently than how it's written on that lead sheet. And I think the way I've written it here is probably more typical for how people tend to play it. So we're starting with root and 7th on bottom. If we wanted, we could start with root and 3rd. But coming from where we came from, this root and 3rd on the C major, this is a nice, keeps our left hand in a nice kind of same spot. So root and 7th, we're doing 2, 5, 2, 5, 1 in F major. So G minor 7, C7, G minor 7, C7, F major 7. So we've got root and 7th, moving to root and 3rd, root and 7th, moving to root and 3rd, moving to root and 7th. Okay, so adding the melody to that, this is the beginning of the bridge. Now, same thing, up a whole step. But instead of going to G major 7, it goes to G dominant 7. And then we've got a nice little break there. That's what people typically play. And I know in the lead sheet, it's just written out rhythmically. It says switcheroonie, but you can play, I usually play a little, some notes there. Switcheroonie. Okay, so here's the whole bridge. And then we're back to the last A. And if you want, you know, I know I've got it written out with half notes, but if you want to get the swing in, you could do like quarter notes in your left hand, just feeling nice. Think like, if you check out some Errol Garner, you'll hear those nice swing in quarters that feel really good. So this is what that would sound like with quarter notes. Right, and that last measure, the E minor 7 to A7, you wouldn't play that the last time through the song, but you play that, we call that the turnaround, because it helps you turn around back to the beginning of the song form, so that A7, that E minor 7 to A7 leads you back really nicely to the D minor 7 at the top of the form. Anyway, so that's Satin Doll, the melody with 2-note voicings. Please email me questions you have about that. Here's now the comping. And I just wrote this out with half notes. So our bass line is going to be half notes, what we call a 2-beat feel. And I'd suggest with your right hand, even though I've written it as half notes, you can experiment a little with the rhythm. And I'd say keep it simple. You might just, hit, instead of hitting your right hand on 1, you might hit on the and of 1 and the and of 3 instead of 3. So instead of, you might do something like, you can feel that feels pretty nice. Anyway, so this is, again, this is our 4-note voicing. So we're starting with a 2-5 in C major. Here's our root. Here's 3rd, 5th, 7th. And you don't have to start in this inversion. This just feels nice in terms of range. It's kind of near middle C, a little to the left of it. It's a nice kind of deep range. And so we voice lead the way we did last week. Our 3rd of D minor becomes our 7th of G7. Our 5th of D minor becomes our 9th of G7. And our 7th of D minor becomes our 3rd of G7. This is kind of taking that voice leading that we worked on last week and applying it to a song. So I'll play through the first 4 bars to get us going. Here's D minor 7, G7, D minor 7, G7, E minor 7, A7, E minor 7, A7. Right, so that second 2 bars is the same as the first 2 bars, just up a whole step. Now going from A minor 7 to going from A7 to A minor 7, we're going to keep our left hand right where it is on that A, and because we have the same root to both chords, we're not going to have a big shift. We're going to keep our 7th on bottom for A minor 7. And then what we'll do, though, is voice lead. If we've got our 7th on bottom, then here's our 3rd, and then the other voice that we're using at this point is the 5th. So that'll be our A minor 7. So coming from A7, G, B, C sharp. When we go to A minor 7, we've got G, C, E. And now we just voice lead through it. So now down a half step, just like we did with the 2-5 chromatic voicing last week. And now here we're resolving it a little different, because last week we only practiced like D flat resolving to a 1 chord a 5th away. So it would typically, what we learned was how to resolve from D flat 7 to G flat major 7. But we're not going to G flat major 7. We're just going down a half step to C major 7. So since we're just moving a half step lower, we're going to let our since our bass is just moving a half step lower from D flat to C, we're going to let our voicing move in parallel motion, right? So the 3rd F, the 3rd of D flat, is going to move down and become the E of C major. The 7th, which is C flat, 7th of D flat major is C flat, is going to stay where it is, except now we're going to call it a B, and that's going to be the 7th of C major. And our 9th of D flat, 7, so that 9th is E flat, is going to move down and become the 9th of C major 7. So now it's a D. So here's what it sounds like when we put it all together. And now for our A7 chord, we want it to lead nicely back to our D minor 7. So this is the same A7 voicing that we were using up in measure 3 and measure 4. Notice with our bass line, when we hit that C major 7, we've got the root on 1, but then to keep our half notes going, even though there's no chord change, we're going to play the 5th of the chord. So root on 1, 5th on beat 3. Same deal for the A7 chord. Root on 1, 5th on beat 3. Now if you want to get slick with it, you could, add a chromatic note down to get you from that E You could add an E flat to get you down to the D minor 7. So here's from the C major 7 in bar 7. Right. So that's the. But you don't have to do that. You can just keep it all half notes if you want. So going on, I'm going to just take it from measure 9. Now we're on the bridge. Okay, so I'm switching it up a little. We had the 3rd, so on C major 7, we have the 3rd, 7th, 9th. So I had 3rd on bottom. Going to this G minor 7, I'm going to have 7th on bottom, and then have 3rd in the middle, and then 5th on top. And then we just voice lead it. So this is 2, 5, 1 in F major, except we're doing 2, 5, 2, 5, 1 in F major. So here's G minor 7, C7, G minor 7, C7, F major 7. Right, and notice between that 2 and the 5, only one note actually moves. The others all stay the same. Well, I guess the roots move. The roots move, G moves to C. But of our other voices, you know, the F, the 7th of G minor, moves down to E and becomes the 3rd of C7. But the other notes stay where they are. The B flat of G minor stays where it is and becomes the 7th of C. And the D, which is the 5th of G minor 7, stays where it is and becomes the 9th. So they're staying where they are. The only one note really moves. Same deal with when we go to the F major 7. Only one note actually is really changing in our right hand, and that's the B flat is moving down to the A of F major. So the 7th of C7 is moving down and becoming the 3rd of F major. Same thing up a whole step. And then we go to G7, it's dominant. Right, so F natural. And then break, switcheroony. And then we can keep on playing. You can play with your articulation in your right hand. Right. So anyway, that's what you're doing for this week. Please email me questions. I hope I was able to get it across clearly in this video, but please email me questions. I'm very happy to make this as clear as can be. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you're doing. And remember to, make a practice plan. Divide up how many measures there are. You basically have 8 measures for your A sections and 8 measures for your bridge. And you have it 2 different ways. So it totals about 32 bars that you're working on over the week. So however you want to divide that up. Anyway, I hope this video is helpful, and please ask me whatever questions you have. Thanks, everybody. Take care.